Now, we are very, very lucky to have our next speaker with us in Dr. Judy Esmond. Judy is one of the leading international experts on civic engagement, social capital and volunteering. She's one of the most in-demand speakers on volunteer management, volunteer recruitment, retention and recognition, and has presented to thousands of attendees and conferences throughout the world. Judy is one of the most prolific academic writers as well on volunteering throughout the world, with over 50 publications to her name, including books, articles, reports, conference proceedings, manuals and handbooks. Judy was awarded 17 research grants over the past 18 years, of which many were significant grants into volunteering. She conducted the first major research study worldwide into baby boomers. Yay for the baby boomers. Volunteering BoomNet, capturing baby boomer volunteer, and the largest study ever undertaken into volunteer motivations, the Volunteer Motivation Inventory. Judy currently has her own highly successful research training consulting company servicing hundreds of satisfied clients from government, councils, non-profit organisations, community groups and the business sector. Please welcome Dr. Judy Esmond.
Folks, I always start with this, and some people have requested that I do this. Could you do me a favour? Could you clasp your hands together, please? Now, I'll just bring, just don't stay that way. I'll explain in a moment. Hold on. Here we go. Now, those people with the right thumb on top, you are the sexy people in the room. I've done the research. And those people with the left thumb on top, you are the intelligent people in the room. And if there's anybody who has their thumbs together, you are the special people in the room. So, now you can relax. Okay. What I'm going to do in the short time I have with you, I'm just going to look at the reasons why organisations and groups thrive as compared to the reasons why they barely survive. So join me as we go. As Lynn mentioned, I have a volunteering-based company. I also have a training company. So what I'm presenting to you now, I'm not confined by belonging to any government department or anything like that. So I'm just going to give it to you plain. Now this is me before I started working in the sector, in the area. You can see what happens over time. And I have written a couple of books on volunteering and been able to, Lynn said I've produced 50 publications. I didn't know that. I think it's increased a little bit, but it sounds good, Lynn. Sounds good. Okay, what is the difference between organisations and groups, no matter how big or small, that are barely surviving and those that are truly thriving? The 7 reasons why organisations are barely surviving. Let me mention them to you. The first is this. It is the scarcity belief. It is the belief that there are not enough volunteers to go round, and we are so desperate we've got to hang on tight to who we have. And what ultimately happens is that those volunteers become burnt out. And if anybody looks at the number one reasons why the number one recruitment method, which is word of mouth, the last thing you need is to hold on to your volunteers to the point where they burn out. Because when they leave, they say to other people, don't join them. They'll try and hold on to you forever. So one of your best recruitment techniques is the ability to let people go. And for those people who have an abundance of volunteers, I often say to them, why have you a 6-month waiting list? Why don't you connect with other organisations who need volunteers and send them there? Because I promise you, they'll come back later for your experience. But if I have to wait to become a volunteer because you have an abundance, I am then lost to volunteering. So the scarcity model that there is not enough to go around actually holds us back. The second thing is this. We are deserving and the world needs to change. I have had so many organisations say to us, we can't get volunteers now. People don't care anymore. Well, guess what? People still volunteer. And if you look at volunteer numbers overall, they haven't decreased. But when you get caught in saying we are deserving and therefore people should come to us, what you don't realise is nobody goes to the shop simply to please the shopkeeper. They go for their reasons. And when you talk about the benefits to people of volunteering rather than more about your organisation, you can change the way you engage people. But many people say, but we're a worthy cause. But there are hundreds of worthy causes out there. The third one is this: everyone is welcome. Whenever I do workshops on recruiting volunteers, this is what people say to me: we welcome anybody. We welcome everyone and anybody. And you know what? The people who say that the most are the tightest clique and group of people that you couldn't get in, even if you had a sledgehammer. They have become so tight in terms of a clique. And a clique is the most powerful force on earth, I have to tell you. Anybody who has ever tried to work with a volunteer group that is a clique, you know what I'm talking about. So when we talk about everyone is welcome, that has to be true. It isn't about just saying it, it has to be true. Because here's what happens over time to many, many groups, some of the largest organisations, some of the small. We tend to attract people who are like ourselves. We tend to have people who are similar to ourselves. And what happens is we end up with a situation of groupthink, which means we end up people who think like ourselves. And that is the death knell to an organisation or a group. Why? Because we stop growing. So whatever you do, make sure you keep some people who irritate you. I'm not talking about people who say, we've tried this, we've done this, it never works, but people who irritate you. Because they keep you on your toes, they keep you justifying why are we doing it this way, and what if we did it differently. Because when we get too comfortable, we stop growing and we stop doing things differently. The fourth one is this, and you may have heard this, but that's the way we've always done it. Interestingly, I've worked with many groups whose volunteer numbers have decreased dramatically, and when I say to them, but what about this idea, or what about this, or what about this? Guess what they say? That won't work. This is the way we've always done it. The problem is, if they keep working on what they've always done and isn't working, they're going to disappear. Now, you may ask why I put up this slide. This is Miss January, Country Women's Association in Melbourne, in the outer suburbs, of Victoria, wanted to get some money to put in new curtains. Now, what's the Country Women's Association's image? Conservative, older ladies, cups of tea. And I'm not wanting to disrespect anybody in the world, in the room, but this is the image. Here's what they did. They said, we're going to do a nude calendar. This is Miss January. Here's Miss February, knit one, purl one, oops. And finally, this is the December ladies, one lump or two. Now guess what? Now I'm not suggesting that you have to do a nude calendar, okay? But what happened? Do you think they raised money? Absolutely, they sold out. They've done one every year since. But the interesting thing is they began to change the image of the Country Women's Association because they stepped outside the way we've always done it. I mean, we could have a calendar of people making cups of tea, but I don't know how many they would have sold. So sometimes stepping out, taking a risk and doing things a little bit differently can be amazing. Number 5 is constructing walls. Bureaucracy and red tape has been the death of more organisations, groups, and the engagement of volunteers than anything. Volunteers don't volunteer to do paperwork, they volunteer to do. In the recent study we did on emergency management volunteers across the entire sector, the number one thing that came out was this: there's too much bloody paperwork. If there is anything you can do to reduce the amount of paperwork involved, do it. even if it means reducing the number of reports that you do, or having a template where you fill in the dots. Do it, because volunteering isn't about paperwork, and your role in reality isn't about paperwork, it's about people. Number 6 is being constantly busy. And when you are constantly busy, you actually have no time to plan, to think, or to tweak. You know, we call it proactiveness, but often it's reactiveness. It's simply being busy for the sake of being busy. Sometimes you need an opportunity to slow down and ask these questions. Why are we doing it this way, and what if we did it differently? If there is not time to think in your organisation or group, it's really important to make it. And a conference like this is a chance to come away, to think and to learn about different things. But if you never have the chance to stop and say, but why are we doing it this way? Then you just keep doing the same thing, whether it's working or not. This is my favourite cartoon. It's about our busy lives and about stress, and I've blurred it to stress you out. But what he's doing, he's gone to the doctor and he said to the doctor, "Doctor, I want to learn how to relax, but I want to relax better, faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation." And that's how many people feel in their lives, just busyness and doing. Number 7, and this is just about for everybody in this room, you have to stop being indispensable. Why? Because you're not looking after yourself, and this is you trying to walk on water and do it all. You are actually role modelling by being indispensable, burning out. And anybody who knows, who's been involved in volunteering for say 10, 20 years, and they go, "Look, I'd like to resign as the chairperson. Who wants to take over?" Nobody puts up their hand, because what has happened? You have become so indispensable that nobody wants to take on that role. So sometimes when you're indispensable, you're heading up one way and everybody else is heading the other. So they are the things in relation to barely surviving. What are the things in relation to thriving? Here's some key ideas just for you to think about. Number 1 is a shared vision. And let me just tell you something about the vision. Organisations have spent time and energy on strategic planning. And when I mention that, there's a shiver that goes down the spine of many people. People have spent so much time coming up with the right words for their vision statement that they've forgotten something. A vision is not the words. It is how it makes you feel in your heart. It is not the head words, it is the heart words. So when you ask people in your group or organisation, what is our vision? It's a really interesting thing to ask them from their heart what it is, because it is the heart, not the head, that keeps us going when times are tough. And it's not what the vision is, but what it does. It's about the cathedral, not just the building blocks. It would be a wonderful thing to go back and say to everybody, what's the vision of our organisation or our group? Not the strategic planning words, but what they speak of from their heart. The second one is team learning and openness. And a team that's really committed to learning has to tell the truth, not about just what's going on out there, but what's going on in the organisation and the team itself. So many times there's an image given of how effective or how we're working towards best practice. Can I say something about best practice, which will set the cat amongst the pigeons here? When you use the word best practice, you end up deciding on a practice which is supposedly the best. You often then stop growing and changing because it's become the best. There's good practice, there's effective practice that always allows you to get better. But when it becomes best practice, it's like we stop. And sometimes there are egos and power plays that have become more important than what your vision is. Do you know if an organisation or group does not have room for new ideas to be born, then they drown? Every new idea is born drowning, as in it's not fully formed. It hasn't been established. If when a committee gets together and someone brings up a new idea and it only takes the shake of a head for it to be destroyed, if that happens every time, then no new ideas have a chance to grow. And without new ideas, it makes it difficult to deal with the challenges that are presented. Number 3 is about leading the way. Remember I mentioned about not being indispensable. Here's what you need to do. Work on leading not by doing more, but by doing nothing. Now, why do I say nothing? Because when you work on how can I do less and less and utilise the skills of people more and more, then your group or your organisation grows. So if I said to you, when you leave today, your job is to learn how to do nothing, to truly do nothing, then what you do is develop other people. But when you are indispensable in trying to do it all, that opportunity doesn't arise. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do nothing ever, but I'm saying if you start to think, how do I do less and utilise people more, then you have the ability to grow something tremendously. The thing that organisations and groups that thrive do this. They focus on their strengths and they celebrate their weaknesses. What I mean by that is they work out where their strengths are and they stop being everything to everyone. And some of the biggest organisations have done that. They've expanded and taken on projects and got money to do this and that, and they've actually lost something in their way. Don't go into areas that you are not strong at. Don't bother. There are others to do that. Focus on your strengths and work on this, the vital few that you are standing at, and leave the trivial many for others. It is one of the most powerful strategies a group or organisation can do, but it's one of the most powerful strategies an individual can do. Stop trying to be good across everything. Work out where your strengths are and begin to utilise others and let them grow in areas where you are not good. And in leadership, and you know this, it's not about being corporate, professional or institutional. It's actually about being human. If you can make people you work with or lead feel like this, you are way ahead of many in leadership who never come close. Number 4 is test and tweak. You don't have to make massive changes. The most powerful ways to thrive are testing something, tweaking it, trying it, testing it, tweaking it, asking why, asking what if. Often we say we've got to make these massive changes, and what we do is we alienate probably just about everybody in the organisation doing that, particularly volunteers. Take something, test it, tweak it. It is a powerful way to grow and develop. Number 5 is trends. The number one reason people give for not volunteering is I do not have enough time. If your organisation doesn't respect the fact that people can only now give you limited time, you are looking at very big challenges. There are ways to utilise them, and Lockie mentioned some in relation to Skill Bank and the use of time of young people. Here is what's happening. The amount of time people have available is being reduced, and the requirements being asked of them is increasing. What people are now saying is, I can give my time but only in a limited way. This opens up possibilities you have not thought of because you've always done it a certain way. Sea change and tree change volunteers, and you've probably heard a lot about these. You know, there's no longer going to be a sitting back rocking chair retirement. Those people have limited time as well. But the biggest trend that is happening with baby boomers is the move from success to significance. They have often been successful, and at a certain time in their life they're looking at being significant. If you can use their time wisely, you can capture a huge group of people. Flash mob volunteers, and I won't go into all of these different, because if you join me at the workshop I'll give you some more ideas. But the idea that you can text a group of people to turn up and do an amazing piece of volunteer work and then disappear again. What possibilities has that for you? Number 6 is the technology explosion. Do you remember when we had typewriters, pens, pencils? Things have changed. But here's what I want you to do. Do not be afraid of technology. Be excited. Why? Because technology has offered the opportunity for more organisations of small numbers to be as powerful as those with large numbers than ever before. So here's the thing. Not all technology benefits you. A lot of it takes time and energy and has little results. The skill as a group is to work out what technology has the greatest bang for your buck. The smartphone is the future. This is what we will all be using more and more and more. Mobile technology. So you have to make sure that you are there, so that because what's going to happen is when I look at volunteering, I'm going to go to my mobile phone and I'm going to look at something usually local, unless I'm looking online. You want to be up there on the mobile apps and applications available. Now, if this is not an area of expertise for you, here's what you do. You get a volunteer, usually under 10 years of age, who can help you do that. And that's the project that they do. Number 7 is this. Never be afraid to think big. Life is too short for us to think small. There are actually no rules. We can twist and tweak and change them. Really we can. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer in the bureaucracy, but don't be afraid to think big. Because if you built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Don't be afraid to put the foundations under them. So as you rush off soon to morning tea, just keep and this is not representing anybody in the room, but just keep in mind those ideas between the difference between thriving and barely surviving. And I'm just going to finish with a piece of research by a gentleman called David McNally that identified as well the differences between thriving and surviving. This is a US study. Here's what he found. Thriving organisations look at what's possible, surviving what's necessary. Thriving look at learning as life rather than learning as effort, about planning the future rather than blaming the past, about discovering needs rather than just taking orders, solving problems rather than giving answers. Individuals and organisations that thrived looked at finding solutions rather than fault, being accountable rather than pointing the finger, taking a stand rather than running away from trouble, discovering why rather than justifying why not, being courageous rather than cautious. Finally, they looked at what's true rather than what's safe, what I can give rather than what I can get. The future is unlimited rather than uncertain. And most of all, individuals and organisations that thrived looked at life as an adventure rather than a struggle. Out of everything I've said, the most important thing I'm going to say now is look after yourself as well. You are so important in the work that you do. I want you to make sure that you're not just focusing on the destination, but make sure that you enjoy the journey as well. Thank you.